KFI AM 640. It's later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And I actually broke out some, not necessarily winter clothes, but some fall clothes. Maybe I'm rushing it a bit, but I was so glad to be done with the extreme heat of last week. I said, let me just see if I can just make the weather do what I want it to do. So I put on a long sleeve shirt and everything. And I said, hey, it's only like 72, 73 outside today. So it was pretty mild weather. It put me in a pretty decent mood to have to drive in today. I didn't feel the need to flip anyone off like Mark Ronner. Good evening, Mark Ronner.
I made it all the way to work without doing that today.
See, I'm quite sure the weather had something to do with it. I didn't feel the need to pop my trunk like Twala Sharp might have. Good evening, Twala Sharp.
Okay.
Right. You didn't say I was wrong, though.
Not the trunk.
So everyone made it to work safely, except for Stefan. Elmer's in for Stefan today and tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, then we're going to have some fun. In fact, speaking of fun, remember I told you, I think it was about last week or so, I said you better block out October 30th on your calendar. Well, I'm just reminding you, I can't give you all the details yet, but just block out October 30th on your calendar, because by the end of this week, we will be able to give you all the details and all the information as to why. And let me just give you some hints. It's going to be exclusive. You're going to have to listen to this show, and it's going to be worth your while. We got something very special that we have planned, that we're cooking up right now, that we've been working on for a couple weeks, and we've almost got everything in place, and we'll be able to share that with you. But you're going to have to be a listener of Later with Mo Kelly. That's how we do it. And we'll have all the details before the end of the week, but you may just want to make sure you don't schedule anything for October 30th. Hint, hint, as if something might be going on around the 30th, the end of October.
And we just have to trust you.
You don't have to, because you already know.
I don't know everything.
You know as much as I do.
I do?
I told you.
Well, I was hitting the sauce last week. What can I tell you?
That's a you problem, dog. That has nothing to do with me.
No, I honestly barely remember our conversation about it.
Okay, well, maybe I'll fill you in during the break.
Thank
maybe.
you. Okay.
No guarantees. But there's a lot we have to talk about. Some of it news related, some of it entertainment related. I know that you're aware of what has been going on with the FBI investigating the apparent Trump assassination attempt. We know that story's there. We're just waiting for more solid information before we go off on some tangent and just start wondering and speculating and wish casting. No. We don't do that here. We're going to give you solid information when we have it. There's obviously a suspect in custody. We don't know any type of specific motivation. And when we know those things, then we'll start weighing in on those things. We're not brushing the story aside. It's a very, very, very dangerous time in America right now. And I think it's a sad time in America. But we're just letting you know we are aware of that story as the rest of the world is. We're going to tell you about Television City. If you are a CBS television fan, you know everything about Television City, or maybe you don't. But it's due for an overhaul, and it may cost, I don't know, billions of dollars, but what's money? We're going to just throw some money at it. We're going to make it happen. We're going to tell you who might be against it, including a former mayoral candidate, wink, wink. And we're going to not only remodel Television City, but we're going to remodel L.A. And there is a very specific proposal to end homelessness. I didn't say address it. I didn't say fight it. I said end homelessness, like, you know, how we've ended hunger, you know, like we've, never mind. Well, I want to tell you about the plan. I'm not so sure it's going to be successful, but we're ready to throw all the money in the world at homelessness and once and for all end it in a decade or so.
Does it involve David Copperfield?
No, well, you might need him. You might need Doctor Strange, Gandalf, and some other wizards out there to help you, because this plan, I'm not so sure is going to bring about the desired result. It's probably well-intentioned. I'm quite sure it's very sincere. And I know they spent a lot of time putting the numbers together. I just don't think it's going to be successful. I don't want to give it all away, but that's what's coming up before the bottom of the hour. And Home Depot, Mark Ronner, you may appreciate knowing this. Home Depot is going to have to pay a $2 million fine for overcharging customers. Who would have thunk it?
Because I'm against overcharging customers? Is that why you singled me out there?
No, because it goes to that ongoing conversation. There's inflation, and then there is corporate greed, which is separate, distinct from inflation.
Yeah, the inflation thing's been totally debunked. Look at all the companies, including Kroger, that have been busted, having to admit that they jacked up prices far more than they had to meet inflation. No.
You said it, and I'm going to reiterate. It's one thing to say that, hey, inflation is high. It's another thing to say that inflation is high and there are record profits of these companies and corporations at the same time. Profits, we're not talking about revenue. We're talking about profits after they paid off their bills.
Record profits, stock buybacks, and massive CEO packages. And the list is really growing fast. We're finding new things out almost every day.
Corporate America is having a wonderful time right now, a wonderful time in this supposed down economy. I'm just saying that, not everyone is suffering out there. And there's a theme to this. The people who have the record profits are also the same people who are overcharging you and just giving you the shaft. Can I say that?
Oh, yeah. Shaft is, we're in safe shaft hours, aren't we, Elmer?
Okay. I think
yeah.
Okay. Oh, I can say giving them. I just can't. Never mind. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. When we come back, we're going to talk about Television City, its history and connection to Los Angeles and Hollywood, and the plan to overhaul that major complex and what it might mean for you.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
If you're not of a certain age, you may not know about the historical significance of Television City. For example, I'm going to throw Elmer under the bus here. Elmer, do you have any personal history or knowledge of Television City when I say that to you?
Not at all.
Television City was built in the LA Fairfax area around 1952. And it was home to most of the CBS TV shows in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and game shows, sitcoms, all like that. And it was a fixture. Like, for example, have you ever watched Good Times?
No.
You've never seen the TV show Good Times with Jimmy Walker, Esther Roll, John Amos?
No, I know of its existence, but I've never seen it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Now I feel like I'm 145.
Bring on the meteor.
Right. Okay. Well, Good Times was a perfect example. It started each one of its shows saying that it was coming to you live from Television City.
From Television City in Hollywood.
That's how the show started every single week. But Television City was much bigger than that one show. It's iconic. And there is a fight afoot to modernize and expand Television City. But they're saying that it would cost about $1.2 billion. And this is not being well received by everyone within the city. But just like you, Elmer, you may not have known the importance and history of Television City. So I pulled this just for folks like you.
CBS is about to celebrate its 60th anniversary.
Oh, and this was about 40 years ago, so, the math is a little bit off.
CBS is about to celebrate its 60th anniversary. From 1927 to 1947, you watched the radio. Then along came television. This week, we're going to take a look at some of the great shows that you've watched on CBS the past 40 years. In the old days, most shows were shot in drafty old stage theaters. Then William Paley, founder of CBS, decided he wanted something more. Not a single theater, but an entire television complex. And so in 1950 began construction of Television City here in Hollywood. What a view! I've never been that close to smog before. I'm sure you'll all find it fascinating that enough concrete was used in this building to form a highway 8.5 miles long, 20,000 cubic yards. More than 100,000 square feet of linoleum was used. It was a special broadcast premiering the grand opening.
Price is Right.
Oh, boy. What I do for a living. Here we are in Television City's legendary
I gotta say, for a studio producing a piece about a studio, it's really drab and it's really low, I'll say, tech. It was just not a lot was put into this, but the information is more important.
legendary Studio 33. Many great shows have been shot here. Jack Benny Show, Carol Burnett, Red Skelton. Currently, of course, The Price is Right, and I'm a loser. Legend is that Jack Benny had this studio constructed to his own specifications, with the seats sloping so that the cameras would have an unobstructed view of the stage. We have a clip now of Jack Benny appearing at the groundbreaking ceremonies for Television City in 1952, 35 years ago.
Actually, it wasn't. It was more like 52, what was it, 72? Yeah, 72 years ago. So, the math is a little off.
I hate to disagree with the mayor of Los Angeles, but there's no oil under this building. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the benefit of our people at home watching the show, I would like to explain the how big the CBS Television City really is. Now, these buildings here, this magnitude, in fact, we have this model made for that, you see. Now, these buildings cover an area of approximately 63,000 square feet, you see? And the air cooling system alone could make, I would say, about, 600 tons of ice per day, or enough to keep Phil Harris and highballs for one entire evening.
The takeaway is 63,000 square feet. Well, the project plans include 1.7 million square feet of soundstage, production support, production offices, and the retention of the original 264,000 square feet. About 480,000 square feet of space would be demolished to make way for new buildings, and this is according to the city planning documents. The number of stages at Television City would increase from 8 to 15. 2 stages built in the 1990s on the east side would be demolished, but 4 original stages, as highlighted in that audio piece, built back in 1952, would be preserved along with other historical design elements. Here's the thing. Remember, you may not remember, we talked about Tyler Perry. Billionaire, he has his own studio soundstage in Atlanta, comparable in size. And he, because of AI, watching where that technological innovation might have taken the business, decided to pull back in his own studio expansion because he felt he may not need all that soundstage space, all those workers and what have you. He recognizes this. This is part of the pushback against this project. You're expanding the physical aspect of Television City when there may not be the need for as many jobs or as many sound stages. A study conducted by the LA County Economic Development Corporation said the planned investment would result in $2.1 billion in total economic output and sustain an estimated annual average of 4,200 direct and indirect jobs throughout construction. Once completed, the study projects television studios will generate $2.4 billion annually in new economic output and support an estimated 19,000 direct and indirect jobs. But not everyone is sold on this, including former mayoral candidate Rick Caruso, wondering whether this is actually a good idea as far as spending money given the issues and ills of Los Angeles. Well, I can't necessarily disagree with that. And we'll get into another proposed study as far as eradicating homelessness. And if you're wondering where all this money is going to come from, I have no idea. I'm just throwing out the numbers. Maybe, I don't know, that maybe we can, have a Television City and no homelessness at the same time. And we can afford both. Maybe.
Put them to work.
It'd only be like, I don't know, $6 billion or so, but we can afford it.
Yeah, sure.
Or not. It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We are live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And if I told you that there is a plan which is floating around, which alleges that it would be able to end/eradicate homelessness in the city of Los Angeles, would I have your attention? Okay, let's say I have your attention. What if I also tell you that this plan, supposed plan, it's an analysis, it says to end homelessness in Los Angeles, it can be done for the mere cost of $20 billion. Would you still be interested? Yeah, I think we'd all be interested. It's just a matter of whether we think it could be done, whether it's realistic. Here's my problem. Anytime you present a plan to me that says we can end X problem in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of money, I usually call BS. Why? Because the problem isn't static. It's not finite. Take out homelessness, and let's say I said crime, or let's say I said hunger. You can't end hunger. You can decrease it. You can diminish it. But you can't really end hunger. And I don't think you can end crime. You can diminish it. You can decrease it greatly. Absolutely. You can give people incentives not to participate in it, but you really can't end it. Why? Because human nature is human nature and free will is free will. And people are going to choose homelessness. People are going to choose crime. People are going to make decisions in which they may end up homeless, or end up hungry, or engaging in a life of crime. That's when it comes down to people making decisions. But let me get back to this proposal to end homelessness. And this was in the LA Times. And according to this analysis, it would cost $20.4 billion to end homelessness in the city of Los Angeles. I say the city of Los Angeles. That is important. Put a pin in it. I will come back to it. This $20.4 billion, which is being proposed, would produce 36,000 permanent housing units for homeless residents with chronic health needs and build or subsidize 25,000 additional apartments for very low-income residents. The proposal assumes the city maintains nearly 17,000 beds in shelters and other interim housing locations through 2029 before ramping down. This, if you do all this, the analysis projects homelessness to decline annually before what is known as functional zero by the end of 2032. So again, this analysis is projecting that it could, if implemented, it could end homelessness in the city of Los Angeles in under 8 years and for the price of approximately $20.4 billion, give or take a couple of billion. My immediate read of why this is not possible, this proposal completely misses the mark. And I don't want to seem like I'm Debbie Downer, that I'm always negative, but there's some glaring holes in this. It assumes that the problem is finite. The number of people that we have on the streets right now is going to be consistent. And we're not going to have another 20, 30,000 in the next year or two or 3 years. It assumes that the problem can be solved or is solvable by only housing. The tent poles of this have to do with housing, 36,000 permanent housing units for homeless residents, another 25,000 additional apartments for very low income residents, maintaining 17,000 beds in shelters and other interim housing locations through 2029. And not a word on the issues or reasons that people end up homeless, not a word on treating the emotional and substance abuse issues, illnesses, which are frequently connected to homeless people. And if you're only talking about beds, then you're not really talking about ending homelessness. Give you some other information. There are about 45,000 people who are homeless in the city of Los Angeles. What's the problem with that? well, we don't live in a place which people are confined to stay in a certain area. Remember, we were talking about this last week, what they were trying to do in Long Beach. They were clearing people out of Long Beach parks. Where would they likely go? I don't know, a neighboring city like Signal Hill. Or then maybe they'll come to San Pedro because they have freedom of movement. And if you tell me that there are 45,000 people who are homeless in the city of Los Angeles, I would respond saying, well, what about the people who are homeless in LA County? Are they saying that they can't end up in Los Angeles? Are you saying that Ventura County cannot end up in the city of Los Angeles? Are you saying that these other counties and places which there are homeless people are not going to come to LA City? Or are you saying that if you do this in LA, you can control the boundaries of LA and make sure that there is no homelessness within the city of LA? It doesn't make sense to me. And I doubt it would make sense to you because I know you're rational. I know you're logical. I know you're frugal financially. And just when I say $20.4 billion, you think like, well, how much have we spent already? And we can't even seemingly make a dent. And this proposal, this analysis says, hey, we need to do more of what we've been doing, which by all eyeball tests, by most accounts, it's not making a difference. With all due respect to Mayor Bass, I'm quite sure she would say how many thousands of people that her programs and projects have gotten off the street. And I would respond very respectfully, Mayor Bass, okay, but what about the people who are now on the street since you've come into office? How do we deal with that? Are we talking about a net gain or a net loss? Or are we talking about there are fewer people being on the street today? Have we somehow addressed the reasons why they're ending up homeless? Are we making sure that they're not going to be homeless again in 6 months or a year? Or is that just impossible? Because if you say that if you give you X amount of dollars that you can functionally eradicate or end homelessness, I want to say that's not possible. Because we can't do it for any other abstract idea. There is not something tangible that we can point to which is going to determine whether someone ends up homeless or not. Why? Because there are too many variables in life. I know someone who's listening right now, and I don't mean this disrespectfully. I know there is someone listening right now who before the end of this year will have the unfortunate news of being diagnosed with a serious illness. And that person is going to go through financial hell. And if that person survives, there is a distinct possibility that they may lose their house. They may lose their place to live. And they may end up homeless because they don't have friends to call. They don't have relatives. They don't have savings of some $200,000 or $300,000 because they spent all of that on just hospital costs. And if you're not dealing with those realities, then this plan, it doesn't mean anything. It may be well-intentioned, but we're not being honest with each other. I know that all of us want to end homelessness. I know that. Now, we may disagree on the methods, but I think fundamentally we all would like to end homelessness. And I know we've all either visited a place in this country or a place around the world where homelessness is not a thing. It's not an issue. Or you lived long enough in Southern California to remember when it wasn't as much of a thing. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that the way that we've been going about it has made it improbable. We've spent billions of dollars, not only on a city level, but also a state level, and it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere. And if the next proposal that we see is more of the same of what we have been doing, then I'm not so sure anyone can confidently say that it's going to make any difference at all. We have tried the housing first approach, where if we have more units, more dwellings, more beds, that will end or functionally end homelessness as we know it, because it's a lack of housing. I disagree with that. I think it's much more complex than that. I think the situation requires far more investment, not only financially, but socially, because we're talking about people, or at least we should be talking about people, and not just beds. If it could be solved by just money and beds, we would have been there, or we would have been much closer given how much money we've already spent at this point. If you need to see the analysis, the LA Times put it out today, $20.4 billion to end homelessness in Los Angeles in 8 years. 8 years. Even though for the past 8 years, we haven't even made a dent. We've probably even gotten further behind.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Just want to let you know that we're aware of the breaking news of Sean P. Diddy Combs, who seemingly has been arrested at his residence in New York. There has not been a lot of information as far as what he may be booked on, but we do know that it is federal in nature as FBI agents arrested him. When we know more, we'll be sure to pass that along to you, or the KFI newsroom will have that for you, but we're waiting for more information to give you the specifics. If you're just tuning in, Sean P. Diddy Combs has been arrested on federal charges which have not been made public presently in New York City. And this is an ongoing conversation that I've been having with you about the economy and what is actually the economy and what is more a function of greed and decisions being made by corporate America, which hurt you, hurt me. And the latest is Home Depot. Home Depot is going to have to pay a $2 million settlement, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Nothing. But they're going to have to pay for overcharging customers. Have you noticed it never works out to your benefit as a customer? You never hear about, hey, so-and-so, they were undercharging customers, and we just found out at the last minute. It was really strange. No, it's always overcharging. It always works in their direction. But Home Depot will pay nearly $2 million to settle a civil enforcement claim from California district attorneys that Home Depot was engaging in false advertising and unfair competition. Imagine that. Home Depot brought an item to checkout. They would be a person who brought it to check it out. They would be charged more money than what was written on the shelf tag or on the item itself. So when they would scan it, go boop. And if you weren't paying attention, the price that would come up would be more than what you thought you were going to pay for, or what it even said on the product that you were supposed to pay for. And we all know, let me put it this way. This is like my roach theory. Okay, this is just the one that you know about. There are probably a bunch of other corporations, a bunch of other companies doing the same thing, because the assumption is, yeah, if we get caught, no big deal. We'll only have to pay a $2 million fine. But how much money did they actually make in the process? How many millions of people did they likely overcharge? How many? I don't know. You don't know, because we've all gone to Home Depot and you kind of pay the price. And if it's in the general range of what you think you're supposed to pay, you go on about your business, and you may not realize that you've been overcharged by $3, $4 or something like that. What if that happened to about 10 million people, 10 million customers across the country? Yeah. Talking some real money for a corporation, which is getting off relatively easy for $2 million. The company admitted no wrongdoing. Of course it didn't. It must pay $1.7 million in civil penalties, as well as $277,000 to cover investigation costs, as well as to support future enforcement of consumer protection laws. It's nothing. The judgment also ruled that Home Depot must implement a price accuracy program. What is that? What does that mean? That your scanner actually works? Boop. Accurate. You can go ahead and charge Twala. Boop. Accurate. Okay, Elmer, you can pay the price. Boop, boop, boop. Mark Ronner, he was overcharged.
You got to understand that fine, that's just the cost of doing business for a corporation that size. It's nothing.
I don't think it is the cost of doing business. I think it's less than nothing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. $2 million to Home Depot? That's an executive salary. That's one.
Not even.
That's okay.
Not even.
Yeah.
Not even. No, I said an executive. I didn't say like a high-level executive, okay? It's nothing. And also, not that I'm an accountant, but I'm quite sure they can write this off against some other tax debt that they would have paid, where they don't have to actually shoulder the cost or feel it on any level.
Or they can just easily funnel it back into raising prices across the expanse of Home Depots and just bring the prices up on stuff for a little bit.
That's exactly right. It's a shell game.
Yeah.
Let me give you some idea of how big Home Depot is and how little this means to them. Home Depot is the nation's 5th largest retailer, number 5 in the country. And we're talking about $2 million. They probably made $2 million since I started this segment in just a few of its stores. $2 million. In March, Home Depot announced it was buying SRS Distribution, a huge building project supplier that counts professional roofers, landscapers, and pool contractors as its primary customers. Anybody want to take a guess how much that costs? Anybody? $3
billion.
Twala says $3 billion. Mark, do you know? Have an idea?
8.
Okay. Elmer, you want to take a guess?
7.
$18.3 billion.
Oh,
Nice.
Crazy.
Nice.
$18.3 billion. And you know what the 0.3 is? That's $300 million. 0.3, $300 million. They were fined for overcharging people $2 million. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
We're not just in smart speakers. We're in a couple of smart ears as well.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.